My name is Arif Irfanullah and I teach finance in Karachi, Pakistan. Simplistically put, I have three teaching tracks. Number one, I teach financial management at the university level. Number two, I run classes for CFA level 1 and CFA level 2. Next year I plan to start running classes for CFA level 3 also. And number three, I run corporate courses for executives all over Pakistan, and these corporate courses cover areas such as equity analysis, risk management, etc. Before getting into teaching, I have worked for several years in the United States and for a couple of years in the Middle East. What I want to do now is briefly describe the story behind the lectures that you see on this page. I am now switching to PowerPoint mode, which is where I am more comfortable. So, as I already mentioned, I've been conducting CFA classes in Karachi since 2008, and over the last few years I have had one batch for level 1 and one batch for level 2. This year the demand for my classes became quite high and was more than what I could easily handle. And also I started receiving requests from various parts of Pakistan. Another issue was that some people wanted to attend my classes, but the tuition fees was a bit of an issue. Some of the challenges that I had as a teacher included the fact that each student has his or her own learning pace. Some students would absorb the material very fast, others would take a little bit longer, and one major reason for this difference was the fact that students often came from different academic backgrounds. So some of my students had done their bachelor in business administration from a reputable college. Others, for example, might not have studied for several years. They might have done a BCom 4 years ago. So clearly there was a difference in academic levels. And then that resulted in the fact that the rate at which they understood new material was different. Another issue was the immense amount of material that I would try to cover in every class. And in a 2-3 hour segment, even the brightest and most motivated students find it difficult to concentrate. And finally, given the amount of material that needs to be covered in the CFA, I would focus mostly on covering concepts in class, which meant that there wasn't enough time for practice. And even then, it was hard to cover all the concepts. So to address these kinds of challenges, I had the bright idea to create online videos. And now technology makes this quite easy. So I did a little bit of research and figured out what hardware and software I needed, and within a few weeks I started making video lectures. And once I started doing this, essentially it was a no-brainer, in the sense that once I started putting my lectures online, students could listen to them anytime, anywhere, and at their own pace. So if they did not understand a concept, they could simply pause, rewind, and play again. Obviously, in class, when a student doesn't understand, occasionally he or she might ask to have the concept repeated. But if he still doesn't understand, then most students are polite and just let the matter go. But when one is listening in the privacy of one's own room, one can pause and rewind as often as he or she wants. So this was huge. And at least for the 2011 CFA lectures, I decided to open this up to the world so anyone could benefit. Now, how did things transpire? I started recording and publishing my lectures in July 2000 this year, July 2011, so earlier this year. And I basically posted a few videos every week. So as I had my in-class session, then within a day or two after the in-class session, I would create an online video and then upload it on YouTube. I completed this project by early November, and for all 10 CFA topics, which I will talk about in a short while, I created about 136 videos, and the response has been tremendous. So in just a few short months, over 56,000 lectures have been delivered, and you can take a look at my channel on YouTube and you will notice that there are people from all over the world who have been listening to and benefiting from these lectures. Now, a quick sense for what is contained in these lectures. And having taught finance for several years and having studied finance at the University of Chicago, I believe that the CFA Institute has done a brilliant job of compiling the most relevant undergraduate level finance content. So in a sense, my job was easy. I did not have to go about defining new content. I simply followed the CFA level 1 curriculum. And what you will see is that if you study this material, your knowledge will be at par with finance majors from the best universities in the world. In other words, you do not have to be preparing for the CFA exams to benefit from these lectures. Essentially, this is a rigorous and reasonably comprehensive finance curriculum. So anybody who wants to increase their knowledge of finance or refresh material that they studied many years ago in university, then this is a great resource. In terms of the particular topics, there are essentially 10 areas that are covered over here. We start with ethics. This content is very CFA specific and it focuses on a professional in the investment management industry. The idea here being that if you are in this industry, what are the ethical values and the ethical standards that you must follow? And obviously, if you are pursuing the CFA, this material is essential for you to pass the exam. And even if you are not pursuing the CFA, I think the guidelines provided here are excellent for the investment community. And many of the issues that we see in the financial world today could be avoided if the financial community actually takes these ethical values and standards seriously. Number 2, quantitative methods. So this essentially is the mathematics of finance, and broadly speaking, this topic in the CFA curriculum is divided in 2 parts. The first part focuses on the core concept of time value of money, and then applications of the time value of money such as net present value, internal rate of return, and so on. The second part in this topic is basically statistics, and this covers areas such as various kinds of distributions, normal distributions, etc., and the application of statistics. Number 3 is economics, which consists both of microeconomics as well as macroeconomics, and what you will find here is essentially the core college level microeconomics and macroeconomics. Those who have done A-levels will find a significant overlap between what they've studied at A-levels and what you will see over here. In 2012, there's been a major upgrade to the economics curriculum. Number 4 is financial reporting and analysis. This is a huge segment because for a financial analyst, it is essential that he or she be able to carefully study the financial reports of a company and to be able to analyze them. And effectively, this is about 20% of the CFA exam. The core financial reports that you get to know very well are the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement, and essentially we get into the details of each one of these and the interaction between these 3 statements and how to analyze a company by looking at the information contained over here. Number 5 is corporate finance. Here we get into areas such as finding the cost of capital for a company, topics such as capital budgeting, corporate governance, and so on. In a college level course, this material is typically covered in a course called Financial Management. Number 6 is portfolio management. So here we learn how to take a portfolio perspective. So essentially we learn that rather than putting all our eggs in one basket, it makes sense to diversify and put our money across different investments or asset classes so that we can diversify our risk. This is covered briefly at level 1, and then this material becomes much more expansive as we get into level 2 and level 3 of the CFA. Number 7 is equity, and here we first have an overview of various equity markets, and then we get briefly into the valuation of different kinds of equities. Number 8, we have a series of lectures on fixed income securities, and here again there is an overview of the fixed income market followed by the basics of valuation. Number 9 is derivatives. What you will find here is essentially an introduction to derivatives. So we learn about forward contracts, about futures, options, and swaps. Essentially you learn what they are and at a simplistic level how to use them. We do not get into the valuation of these derivatives at this stage. That is covered in level 2. And finally, all other investments, also generally referred to as alternative investments. So this would cover investments such as commodities, hedge funds, private equity, etc. So at level 1 this is fairly brief. Essentially you learn about the basic characteristics about investments other than equity, fixed income, and derivatives. So that is it. I believe that this is a brilliant curriculum and you can learn a lot by going through the lectures over here. That is it. Feel free to explore my website in detail, and if you find the material here useful, then share with anybody else who might be interested. That's it for now. Bye bye.